a social justice leader is one that's not afraid to, for people to, to have differences in opinions. So I guess within the classroom, it would be, allowing having a student-centered classroom versus one that you just lecture. And within that, also giving, allowing people to interact and voice, I don't want to say that they get to confront problems, but maybe try and dig deeper into figuring out, the problems that have bothered them, and and finding ways where they can, how should I put it? Finding ways that you can, I'm trying to think, what I phrase.
In other words, there are a variety of ways of determining what social justice is. There is no
right, and sometimes when I think, if I think about Dr. Broadman and the things that she does, you become essentially an activist, right? She promotes, activism in a way that you can figure it out on your own, so that, there's not one specific or correct way to do it. It's becoming aware of what you actually are capable of doing. And I guess that's also part of it. I think, you become your own, you can make changes and you have the power to do so. Whether it's, by voicing it, by writing it down and sharing it with others. And so for you as a teacher and promoting social justice is, giving students an opportunity to do those sorts of things.
Well, you've given me some ideas on how I would actually use the word. I would actually think of putting the word on the board and then asking teams of students to define it, because one of my
there's multiple ways,
right, and what most people will think of something where a leader like Cesar Chavez or oil in the rainforest, you think of a problem that affects a large part of society, often society that doesn't have a voice, and then anyone who acts to fix that is doing social justice. And yet something that I would say is of a concern of society, and they're trying to right a wrong. One of my students from Brazil said, I wonder if your government or if your corporations are contacting Petrobras because of the problems with British Petroleum and the big leak in the Gulf. And for him, being a business person, someone with some wealth, that was justice in his definition. I mean, it was something of concern that affected society, and he saw a way to get the injustice righted. And so being open to what is in the room really is what so I'm not defining what I think social justice is. That's the only thing. And I'm trying to define the diversity, the needs for diversity, based on a variety of situations. Sometimes it's pulling the diverse element in by Skype, for instance.
By where?
By Skype.
Okay.
Making sure that and that's part of the lesson planning, making sure I've got a laptop that has a functioning Skype account on it, and I better make sure that the YouTube is working, the Wi-Fi is working. So it's interesting that people say, Steve, you don't seem to have any lesson plan, and I say, well, yeah, I don't spend an hour or 45 minutes before, once a week laying out on a piece of paper what I'm going to be teaching that week, because I already did that sitting with the student when I first met them. They've written out their goals, and I walk into class ready where they are today. And some people might say, well, that's not much of a plan. And I said, well, Yeah, in a sense, yeah. If you wanted, I've had to write down something, and it's up on the wall as a lesson plan, or it's in. Perhaps I have in mathematics. I frequently do a cycle of 30 lessons, and we're in third week, so we're on algebra or and slopes. In other words, I try to keep my paperwork. 30 lessons? Oh, I have 30 mini lessons. Anybody who teaches math really ought to think about not doing a weekly lesson plan. Just hand in something to the administration and say, look, I'll be cycling through these things because there are 5 basic topics in math. Data analysis, number sense, geometry, algebra, which is really relationships. Geometry is really shapes and forms and rules that we can know about them. And so, in other words, I encourage teachers to spend less time on pieces of paper and mapping out where they're going to be taking the entire class, and instead figure out lists of 15 activities that students can choose from, and some students might choose one activity that they work on for 15 weeks. And another student might say, well, I want to do 3 small projects, and they'll be working on those over the 15 weeks. And there might be another student that says, none of these projects are interesting, I'd rather, do something with horses. Great. And so, what kind of class is this? Well, it could be a history class. It could be a math class. Why not? Math, all about horses. And it's fundamentally, it moves away from textbooks. It moves away from the teacher as the source of the information. And it's moving towards, in essence, a more diverse classroom. And I think it's more just.
I have a question about that then.
It's a lot easier.
You're saying like the 15 activities or so instead. And so this could apply for any of your classes, right?
It could apply. If I were suddenly gifted with the ability to teach Shakespeare, I would not be going in saying, this is what play we're going to be studying. I would instead know so much about the play that it could be that out of the 20 or 25 students, we might choose one play that we all work together, but the other ones might say, look, I really can't relate to this black dude in Othello, his alienation and, living in this separate world. I mean, I just can't relate to it. Give me something else. I don't like Othello. And so the most of the classes that I've been through, the teacher just said, there's no question where this is on our syllabus, you have to do it. Whereas I would like to say, okay, here's 5 things that they want you to be able to parrot about Othello. Now, since you're interested in horses, well, let's find a Shakespeare play or another play that embodies that. Or no, why don't we switch over to something like the horse statue that Leonardo apparently built. I don't know if you know that story. Fascinating story. And then, get the student impassioned about something that you could tangentially somehow connect to the information that you're supposed to be getting. In other words, can we meet the needs of the curriculum? That's fine.
So so long as it's within the guidelines of the curriculum.
Well, I mean,
give them some paths of diversity to go through.
Well, I mean, it's as if I've got wheat, bread, cheese. I've got a very nice wine, and fruit and vegetables, right? And somebody comes up and tells me that, well, he's gluten sensitive. Am I just going to say, well, no, you have to choose from something here? I'm going to try to go and find some gluten-free bread, and help this guy out.
And I guess my thing is, it's not that all. I mean, it definitely makes sense, But, I've never worked in a school before. So I don't know, like, what the requirements are of, whether it's a school or the school district. If you have students learning American history, for instance, right? Like, I know that within the Industrial Revolution, you can definitely